Item 2, at the prior stage, would be public comments, and no one wishes to sign up for public comments today, is that correct? And then we'll go on to item 3, Verna Griselle was the county auditor to review and discuss and approve possible application to Texas Historical Commission for grant funds presented by the architect. And before we get into that, if you would, first of all, Ms. Eva, what was the committee that selected the architect?
Back when we first moved, there was a committee set up, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was Commissioner Precinct 4, 2, the county attorney at that time, myself, and the district clerk that met and were on that committee to decide on who we should hire first architect, after we did the move.
Right.
Mhm.
And I didn't serve on that committee, but I think they did an excellent job of selection. And would you go through the process that you've gone through, that we've gone through to develop the plans of the facilities that we're looking at?
Judge, as he gets up, let me just say for those that are here, that we interviewed, I think, 5, does that sound right? Different architectural firms, and narrowed it down to 2.
Mhm.
And then from there, made our selection.
You interviewed 5, you come up with this?
Well,
You know? No.
we liked his accent, which at that point, we thought it was an English accent, but he let us know quickly it was not.
No,
But we liked his accent.
And one of the reasons I've asked him to go through the process, he did a lot of due diligence in coming up with the plans, and I like to go over that now as to how we've got where we've gotten.
So just to quickly recap, when we first met and started on the project, we were looking at building just due to concerns about the life safety issues.
Mr. Luana, y'all move on to think
Yeah.
or there, either way, you'll hear better.
I'll sort of come here and try and project better. If I was English, I'd be shouting a lot, but I should have a softer rhythm to my voice. So when we first started, we were attracted to start looking, first of all, at a little study of the existing courthouse and existing conditions. We all had to move out because of the life safety issues that have been raised. We then went through a process of probably 3 to 6 months in that period of time, coming up with a plan to stabilize, how we can stabilize the foundation system for the existing courthouse. We then started looking at, it was about the time then that the county purchased the school. Then we started looking at the overall idea of a master plan where we could bring the day-to-day parts of district attorney, district clerk, adult probation, and we looked at the project as a whole on this city block, of how we can adapt certain areas, what we could do, bring a new courtroom over here, the possibility for future expansion for larger courtrooms as the county grows. But then we looked at the project as a whole, so you need to have an area like this where it's encapsulated in one area. It gives us ultimate flexibility that we can move varying forms of local government over here to work for here in the future. And looked at how we could investigate elections, new library in this building and such. So we went through a whole study to see what we think would be best use for this local building. Bear in mind, we still need to deal with the existing courthouse. That needed to be, so that was always running sort of concurrently with the plan for the future expansion into this city block. So we were doing the drawings at the same time, doing some more investigative studies to the exterior envelope. We had a report then that we worked with a Austin company called Wish Jenny Elsner, and a couple of the forensic engineers that we worked with in the past. We've done a lot of forensic work on buildings in San Antonio. I've done a lot of my previous history with older buildings back over in Wales. And so we put the report together that sort of gave us an idea of how much we thought construction cost estimates would be to fix and stabilize the foundation, and then also do the exterior envelope and make sure that was secure. And we had a pretty comprehensive report that we presented there. Since that time then, we met with all of the different local government entity groups, with district clerk, Dr. Probation. We've met with commissioners, we've met with district clerk, district attorney. We've met with all of the different bodies. We've also met with the library folks to see what they needed, because I know they were sort of in flux of not really knowing where to go best. They need to expand their future capability. And so we presented the opportunity maybe of using this building, because again, we have the envelope. It will be, we think, a cheaper enterprise to come in and to take the interior away and make the interior work, and then facilitate this. And the location of this with the rest of the local government departments, I think, work very well for the synergy of the county and for Forestville, especially with its location to the old courthouse that we have.
Can I interrupt you just?
Yeah.
When you talk about meeting with all the different department heads and things like that, as far as the courtroom itself and the facilities there, you met with both of the district judges, did you not?
We met, yes, we had met with one slightly longer than the other, but they both had their input into the courtroom. In fact, we had a little bit on a couple of meeting rooms that could be two large meeting rooms, one large meeting room that could be subdivided into two, just to this side of the new courtroom would be, that was actually added at the specific request of one of the judges.
And as far as the Salaport and the holding cells, the sheriff and myself and some of your folks had to go to Austin and meet with the Texas Jail Commission to make sure. And then they had some suggestions to where we have to use less manpower with the change and everything. So I mean, but I just want to inject that.
That's a good point, that each of the specific areas, whether it was the new courtroom, judge facilities there, and then the ones with the probation, district clerk's office, district attorney's office. We also met with them quite at length to look at where they would be for their future needs, for future expansion over the years. And we have all that we need here in this facility. So it's a balancing act then of seeing what their immediate requirements are, seeing what their near future requirements may be, but then we also have the ability for future expansion if need be and later. We, as you mentioned, Judge, we have a pretty good relationship with the folks in Austin with our jail standards. We meet with them probably at least once a month on the varying projects we've been doing at different stages. So we took the point of going ahead and meeting with them ahead of time, just to give an idea of what was coming out before we actually then submitted the drawings to the Texas jail standards. And they had some feedback. And it's interesting, Jeff, when we talked about it, is, like, for example, Sheriff Sawicki over in Guadalupe, it's interesting when they've been doing procedure in a certain way for so long, in a very inadequate building, which the old courthouse was. It's almost, it's a dual training of minds with the sheriff there. The sheriff thought that it would be a certain way, but when we've done the Sally Fort and everything on the first floor and the way they operate with the third floor, it's interesting, they sort of adapted and changed how they actually do operate. So it's an interesting point that we've got manpower we need to cater for, but then depending on the scheduling of court dates, there's ways there that manpower services can you know, bailiff treatment like that can be adjusted over time. So we did a pretty exhaustive study on that and meeting with, say, all the different individual department heads. And we went through several reiterations of plans, adjustments, making changes here, just like we did on the interior of the old courthouse, and we all met and looked at needs for the county attorney and for the officers yourselves, for utilising the old courtroom on the second floor for new courtroom facilities. So I think we're pretty happy. I think with all department heads seem pretty happy in where we're at right now. And then we also initiated starting with the RFP process, looking for a contractor to do the project, and we're in that process still right now. So I think we've done all our due diligence that we need to, and it's standard protocol we normally do. So
And I guess then bring us to what the meeting basically got today, your interaction with the historical commission and some late.
Yeah, that's the other thing. So in the past we've had dealings for the last, I don't know, 10 or 12 years with Texas Historic Commission. Those that know the history of the commission, they used to be a pretty big powerhouse in the state of Texas because, and rightly so, I mean, I come from a historic background, so I know, I can see where they come from. But as a government entity, you know, they rely on funding. In the past, they have a reputation for being a little bit difficult to deal with in terms of, they weren't the most flexible folks, in terms of realizing the real needs of what the county needs for local government over what they saw as maybe the historic rights and the restoration and renovation of the existing courthouses around the state. So we thought as good stewards, we contacted them, and I know they came down and expressed a great interest in your courthouse, I guess some 8-9 months ago. They've had their funding severely reduced over the last 2 or 3 years. Having had some issues in the past, so I've been slightly skeptical about dealing with them on a one-to-one basis in terms of once we get involved with the authority, how much control do they have over what we need to do as local government? That has changed over the last couple of years. We've met with them 2 or 3 times, gone to Austin. They have recently been funded for this year's fiscal year for, I think, about $4.5 million for emergency funds. They've been contacting us considerably. We've kept them in the loop the entire process. Because the site is demarked as a site of architectural and archaeological significance, we still have to go through a tentative review with them when we did the construction drawings for the old courthouse. We sent it to them. They had to have a cursory review to make sure it's all in order, and they approved. Pretty quickly they came back and said, yes, we're good to go. The planning seems appropriate, and we're okay to do that. Over the last couple of weeks, we've had a lot more conversations. They've been contacting us. And we've been saying good stewards, we've been sending them information as we've been producing it to keep them in the loop. And as such, I think they've got a lot of interest with the courthouse since their initial visit and our conversations. They were extremely encouraged by what we were doing, and they were encouraging us to look at pursuing what they call a master plan. The way they look at it, they have a certain, like most government entities, they have a certain checklist you've got to fulfill, all the boxes you've got to tick, and certain requirements. So you have a format that you present as master plan. It's a master plan that is basically for the big kahuna. For example, you submit it as if you want to renovate the existing courthouse. You also have to go the full length of saying, well, you know, I know we have about 8 different paint colors in that courthouse. They want to see it in a historic palette that maybe is, if you're going to change the paint, come up with something that is simpler. And that's what we're advocating for the interior, of going with a brown and a cream. So it has more of the old historic colors to it. So you really have to have a line-by-line, detailed line out of what we're going to do to make that courthouse primary pristine. We did have conversations. Some of the old courthouses, as we know, that was an old brick courthouse that was such poor brick that they had stucco it. There have been instances in the state where there have been similar instances where you've had a courthouse that, similar conditions, poor brick, they had stucco 80, 100 years ago. And part of what their requirements were, well, we want all the stucco removed. This was going back 8 to 9 years ago. They don't have that money anymore. And it's, you know, it's pretty unrealistic to expect anyone to do that. And I was very clear to say that. We have every intention of using that existing courthouse as a seat of local government once again. We don't have an infinite length of time. We have a schedule within reason that we need to start and remodel the building. And we don't have an infinite budget. We have, it needs to be realistic. So it's all on the table. I presented all that to them. They've still been coming back and saying that in terms of the emergency relief and view of the full restoration of that building, we think you guys are really high up on the list in terms of potential monies that you can receive from the restoration grant. So I kept the conversation going, and again, I've spoken to them quite a lot now over the last 3 or 4 weeks. They've contacted our office. I spoke to Mark Cowan there a couple of times, and subsequent to our visit. So he said, well, what are we looking at? I mean, it's a potential, so we have $4.5 million in the budget. As a local government authority, they won't commit to anything. But they were very encouraged to see that we were maybe thinking the possibility of a master plan, because, we're looking at $500,000 or so for the foundation system. And I said, well, that's the type of money we're looking at. The way they operate is they give everything from 50-50 credit back. They'll pay 50-50 up to 85%. So 85% on their behalf, 15% on behalf of the county. Since we have a reasonable budget for the building, but I mean, it's still a lot of money. We've been talking further and further about it, and I'm getting the feeling that we probably have a very good chance of getting, some considerable money that would help with the foundation repair on the building. They haven't released whether they're going to have the next upcoming fiscal year, where they already know they're going to get, I think, 4.2 or 4.5 million. They don't know where they are for full historic renovation for the rest of the buildings in the state, but that has been guaranteed that's coming to them. So, in my mind, again, without any, they were very encouraging from the conversations that I've had, and I've been very upfront with them because I've been very skeptical from the beginning. But from them coming to us and the subsequent conversations I've had since, I think it's worth pursuing the master plan, submitting it to them. I then went into the whole conversation about, well, how are the monies released? How are the funds allocated, when and whys and wherefores? He said, well, they have a review they have an emergency review in January. For buildings are just going to literally go fall apart. The real board review meeting is in April, which is when we'll be looking at going in front of them. But literally from, I think it's April 24th, that next day after the April date, if they say we're good to go, you'll be approved and monies will be dispensed. Again, how much we get of that is not guaranteed, we don't know that, but
when you talk about $4.5 million allocated for the state, that's not much for the state. But however, Lindy asked me, well, where are we on that list? And they,
for the renovation, the whole building renovation, we're right at the top. Again, when you come pointed in things, I don't get the sort of the warm and fuzzies about exactly how much you're already sitting on that list, but for building renovation, we're on the top for the building renovation as a whole. And so I'm thinking longer term as well. I'm thinking, well, if we've got a bigger relationship than we get right now, if we are seen as being on the radar in terms of money to be allocated to a building that they think highly of, I think there's a good chance that we could perhaps in the future. Now, I was very clear. I said we are happy to receive the grant funds to it, but we still want to be in control of what happens to that building. We don't want to feel that as soon as we take grant money, that we sort of lose control over, well, now you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do that. And we said, no, that's not the case at all.
That's different.
well, they have the plan to look at this point.
And do they have something on writing for you says that we don't, that they don't have nothing? So that's a catch right there, I know it.
It has been in the past.
Yeah, it happened on the past, and we talked to a lot of commissioners from different counties, and so once you sign that paper, they have control of that.
Well, I'll give you, I was like you, I was very skeptical. I think from the beginning I've been very skeptical about it, and that's why I've kept them at arm's length. We've been very respectful, we've contacted them when we've had to, and we've gone over and above, we've gone to visit them, we didn't have to. Because I wanted to keep them in the loop, to see how things were progressing. And I'll give you an example, when we were doing the old courthouse over in Guadalupe County, this is 10 plus years ago, we were looking at adding a sally port, and we knew that, I mean, although it's a The original courthouse is about our age courthouse. They demolished it in the 30s. They put that modernist building up. It's sort of pretty prominent there on that ground area. So we knew that nothing we could really do to add on to the back of the building. So we came up with the concept of actually putting an underground Sally Port. Very much like you see up in DC, we all have those driveways sort of disappearing into nowhere and then coming out the other side. So it really didn't affect visually the building as such as a whole, because they were pretty adamant about if you touch anything that touches the exterior, then you know it could be an issue with the Texas Historic Commission. We went through a whole discussion with them, and the lead at the time was quite difficult to deal with. It's no longer there. But I think there's a lot of reasons why, but they were telling us that even when we came up with the idea of that underground Sally Port, they had control right from curb to curb. So they've gone past the building envelope now, they were right to the whole property line. And so that's where I said, okay, fine with that. I'm not dealing with this anymore, we'll do our own thing. They've had to change their attitude considerably, I think, because they have no money anymore. Back then they had a lot of money, they were giving a lot of money. They don't have that now. And they're a government entity that are trying to do the right thing by the old courthouses, but they realize that they've got to be more flexible and realistic with what courthouses we have in the state. And again, that's why I've been keeping the conversation going. So I just want to see where it was going now, and they didn't have their teeth, but knowing that there was a pot of money out there. So the conversation's on from that, and they said, no, we show examples where we've been very respectful of local government requirements and needs. And so I have a much warmer feeling inside than I did.
And in the community, some people asking, why are we just now going out for historical, why did we do that in the first place? And I think you've answered most of that by the things that you just said. However, didn't they say they'd make a past master plan that we had submitted to them available to you?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So what we're doing is, they have their format, how they want to present it.
Mhm.
We've probably got, I would say, 60% of the information format. It just needs to be reformatted. They want a lot more information in terms of, again, you have to sort of submit everything like you want to do everything. That's the way that the board, when they look at it, everything needs to match. And then what they do is they say, okay, well, I think this building here, for what their requirements and their needs are, they'll get X, this building is Y. But it needs to be all, they can't go through any, like a resume or a curriculum data. They all need to be in the similar sort of format. They can actually look at what they're dealing with so they can compare apples to apples, rather than having partials here and full here. And so they need to be in that same format that they can judge then how much money goes to each individual courthouse.
Judge, go ahead.
If I may, just for the citizens over here, when we were going through looking at architects, we looked at a number of architects, and we narrowed it down, as I said earlier, to two. A company out of Galveston and his company. And the thing I think that probably swayed us in the difference in his direction is we had gone through an attempt to work with the state to get a grant. And one of the problems that we had then was, and I want to ask you about this in a moment, is that they wanted to disconnect from the county clerk's office. So we were going to have to.
All the annexes. That
Yeah,
includes,
so we were going to have
storm
to,
shelters
we're going to have to tear those things down and make a disconnect.
and remove the
That we,
stucco that's been on there since the 30s.
and what we understood too, or what we understood is that even down to the point, if we're gonna remodel the courthouse, we wanna keep the same look, but, you know, there's glass you can get put in the windows now that is insulated glass, which provides the same look, but is more efficient. And so we wanted to do some efficiencies, and they hadn't allowed that. And the thing that had us move in Mr. Thorne's direction was that, one, he had been involved in numerous historical restorations of courthouses, and at the same time, as he mentioned, he was working with Guadalupe County and their new justice center and that whole area. And part of our due diligence is that we talked to some of the folks that they had dealt with. The jobs that he did, he had brought them in under budget. And they were just as thrilled as they could be. And so if people are wondering why we didn't rush out immediately and attempt to get a grant, it was the budget that we have set aside for the work to do in its entirety over there. Our match would probably have been more than that based on what it has cost at some of the other courthouses for the restoration, because what they want to do is they want to bring it exactly, or in the past, exactly back to what it looked like in 1883, 1884. And that's very, very expensive. And so we shied away
It'd
from
be
that.
easier to
initially.
bring it back to what it looked like in '83.
It would be, because it wouldn't be much. And it may be that if we don't get it done.
Okay, on this, how much money we're looking at, on this grant?
We don't know. I mean, I told them what I'm looking for. I said, you know, I said I want 600,000 for the foundation. And I said, you know, what do you think that would be? Well, you know, we can probably get a good portion of that for you. For the 50 to 85%, that's generally in that window on the need basis is towards the 85% money-wise. I'd like to go back and look at what Larry was saying on that, if I may. I was very clear for my first meeting in Austin, because I went in with my hackles up from the way that we've been treated in the past. And I said, and I came back and I think I shared with the court back then that in my mind, their opinion was one that they all want every courthouse to be a museum. They don't want anybody else doing it. They want it left, like you said, Larry, or pristine like it was back then. I said, well, if you've got a very rich county that has the money to do that, and they have a lot of the local government facilities, I'm sure there's some counties that can afford to do that. Personally, I think that's wrong. The building, apart from the failure we're having on the one side, the foundation on the wall, it's a sound building, and there's no reason why that couldn't be and shouldn't be used for local government. So we got into a little bit over there. I got a little bit angry about that with them. And I said, well, I'm not taking the stucco off. So I was very up at the line of the sand. I'm not doing this, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing this. That's just the end of it. And so I thought, well, we've done our due diligence. I said we've been good stewards for the county and for we think the building of dealing with them. But even still after that, and I was very clear on what I wasn't going to do, they still come back to us. So it wasn't that I was very clear on what we are going to use it for a seat of local government once again. It's going to be the Commissioners Court and all the local dealings there. And that's what we're going to do.
And you know, I think we all understand about the stucco and so forth, so on, but for the public that hadn't been privileged, we're getting questioned on a lot of things that we've been over and over and over, and I feel like we've done really a good job. We've had it on the agenda for over a year now, that for open meetings at each regular session we've had. So the questions that are popping up now, but one of the things as far as the stucco, that was put on in the 30s. Some of the problems with the structure now was caused by areas below the ground where they did not have the stucco protection from the water that was drained under the courthouse that caused the deterioration, or either from clay sewer pipes back in years ago or from water drainage from the street. I think in the 70s, the commissioners cut away from the courthouse so the water wasn't running under there. So the stucco and the bricks that were utilized was pre-1884 bricks. It was a very subpar brick to start with, sun-dried, and the stucco is bonded with those bricks. You can't, you're gonna pull part of the face of the brick off in order to do, and so that's one thing. Now to go back to the plan that we previously submitted on the courthouse, we had, so people understand that when the courthouse cracked and was having problems, we had already outgrown the courthouse as far as needing court space, and our county has over doubled in the past 25 years in population. The district courtroom is set up, and that courthouse is set up for days whenever the security was not as necessary as it is today there. And the way it's designed, it would take a major undertaking to redesign the courtroom to where you could screen people in and out of the courtroom in safety. The courtroom that we're proposed over here will have those safety features built into it. Besides, the prisoners will be pulled into that side of court, gates closed, moved into a cell where now the officer pulls up outside the courtroom, has to take them through the crowd of people, in the old courtroom. So there's reasonings for everything that we're doing. It's not, and we've tried to be just as open as we can be, that there's not one thing that we've done that hadn't been an open meeting, hadn't been posted. So I think it's important, our county's right on the verge of some real great accomplishments here. And on the website, if anybody will go to our website, we now, we have the tax rate posted from 1998 through the present. Always been in the 0.44. Never has been outside that. And with the growth in the county, all this can occur without people's taxes being affected. Of course, it will be affected, but what I'm saying is there's more tax base to pick up. Your tax rate will not go up. It's a thing that, but that's just like if you don't have to maintain a car, if you don't have to feed your family, you get by with a lot less money, but there's a necessity that has to be taken care of. We've got an opportunity right now to meet the growth needs for years to come in this sector of the county. We always going to have road needs and we need to work on and take care of. There's going to be things that we don't have any idea of what we're going to be faced with in the future. When I first came in, the Extension Service had a meeting of people from across the county to determine what was the biggest priorities for the county. At that time, when you talk to anyone, they talked about economic development and growth. So that was the primary primary subject everybody brought up. We need to develop economic development. The next time they held that, a year, 2 years later, water was the biggest issue, and that was the biggest issue at that meeting. It goes in trends, whatever's on people's mind. But what I'm saying is, we've got an opportunity right now, due to help from the school system. This was a great buy for the county. It was a good deal for the school system. They got to move on to establishing their schools on the properties that they have. This property, and the library board has been planning for years, seeking a much larger structure than what this is. They've been planning that for years, and they're satisfied with this building. The criminal justice facility over here, the courtroom, the district clerk, the adult probation, the DA's office, all in one building. Right now, all of them are holding court, and anybody that has served on a jury in the district court in the last few months realize what a hassle it is. As a courtroom is designed basically for justice of peace. The facility fills up over there when they have court, does it not, Sheriff? And parking is, and along with this block, we've got the half block over here that can be developed into parking in Mr. Thorne's design parking around the whole facility. But I guess what I'm saying is it's one of the most important times in our county to address some very big needs and have them behind us for the future, because we don't know what the future's going to bring. And at that, do you have anything else that you?
No, I think that's entirely right, and with the history we've had with Texas Jail Standards, they're a very good organization. They see the needs for certain boroughs and jurisdictions. They see that some don't have the money at a certain point of time. They know that as soon as they will have the ability to do them just and provide a secure environment, they address it on an as-needed basis. But as you say, I mean, the old courthouse is perfectly suited for the Commissioners Court and to run that part. It does not work, and life safety issues and many other issues doesn't work for criminal court facilities. So I think that the reasoning why we've come up with the plan and what things are going where, and again, we mustn't forget as well, that's a whole historic courthouse. There aren't many that look like that anymore.
Well, prior to us leaving the courthouse, it was the oldest courthouse still being used for its original
There you
function.
go.
And when we go back in it will still be its original function.
Yeah, I mean, it's 95% is in great shape. It's just that one area that, as you've covered, for conditions, from many different conditions, underwater conditions and age and time and regional construction, it's not being used right now, but as again, for stewards for the county, for an old historic building for many generations to come, the location of the new, judicial system that we have here, and the new criminal justice center we have here, and all of the library, and the synergy of the location between the two for downtown Floresville, that's, needs to be looked at, that's very important too. So, and we don't have endless amounts of money. We've tried to be as
I got a couple of questions, going back to the grant, 'cause we're talking about different stuff already. Let's go back to the grant, 'cause this is really important with this grant. You said that you wanna apply for over $600-something thousand for that grant, right? And it's not a guarantee, right?
right.
Okay, and, you have to still do a study, cause you said that you have, what, a 60 or 70% study
About
already?
6%.
You need at least, what, 100% of the whole,
We need to give them what their requirements are, and it's on the website, but I'm gonna go to Austin, they invited me to go there again and actually look at previous master plans, so that we have a format that's our template that we then,
What do you perceive as the additional cost to put that
I
together,
think you look at 1820, something like that, 820,000, something like that. And
to
then
put the proposal
put it
together?
all together, and then
that's what you're gonna charge us?
to put that information together. It's gonna take us probably about a month and a half to get that information in the right order, and we're still within the application time. They haven't gotta have it until January for the April decision date.
You said 18,000 to 20,000?
20,000.
But when I came in this morning, they emailed this to Dawn, and she gave it to me this morning. I can get her to make copies for all of you just now, but in here it says architect fees, we estimate the fee to be between 18,000 and 20,000 for the master plan. That's with an initial evaluation study of the existing courthouse, we believe that the hourly rate would be the best value for the county. If the required work is less than our estimated scope of work, this is all that will be billed to the county. And it goes through the list of the hourly fees and so forth, so on.
What we did is.
But if this grant goes through, if we get it, those 18 and 20,000, that's not gonna come out of the grant, right?
No, that's.
That's money that the county has to put in.
Yeah, I mean,
We have to pay
either
for
way, it's.
Yeah,
Get the grant or not get the grant, you have to have that.
And also, I mean, I'm still undecided, because I still need to see something on writing where it says that if we ever get this grant, that the state is not gonna take over that courthouse.
Is there something on, that says what the requirements are for the county if we do get this grant?
I'm sure we
Do
can
they
probably get
have
something from them.
something?
I'm just gonna go the next week to visit with them anyway, because I wanna take images of the requirements for the master
Because I think
plan.
that's kind of what they're mostly concerned
My-
about.
I'm
My
concerned about
assumption,
that.
and it's probably just an assumption, is that if we put this together and present it to them, and they come back and say, yes, we're gonna do it, we're gonna give you this kind of money,
Yes,
that at that point, if not before, then we'll know exactly what their requirements are.
correct.
We're gonna do it, but you're gonna have to disconnect the county clerk's office. We'll do it, but, and we want brick, and if that's what they want, then we say thank you very much.
We've been there on the clerk's office.
And I reiterated again when I went to visit with them, I went through this whole conversation, because they know the courthouse and everything that we've addressed before. And I said, everything that you want, I'm not doing that. I'm not separating it's staying as is, period.
Now, as far as colors and some other things, and we can do some,
I mean, all the grant.
One thing they want is that old safe revived, those pictures.
Yeah, I told them I'm not doing that
on the
either.
front side.
So I'm not taking the stucco off, I'm not not taking the clerk's office away, I'm, all of those things. And I also had to tell them that I've got a sprinkler system that's gonna be going in that second floor. So you might as well know that right now, because that has to be to life safety. So that, I was very open and front with them, I was,
Now, for anybody that might think, the Historical Association has their clause in us. They get it more in if we don't, get the concessions as far as whatever, but that's courthouse is a historical thing, we comply with a lot of things historical.
When they were here last year, Judge, as you alluded to earlier, we did a tour with the guy, with several people, the one that was in charge, and he indicated to me at that, as you said, that we were the oldest courthouse in the state that had not been redone. He indicated to me that if our intentions were to make that an active seat of government, that's what they really wanted to see, kind of different, that's what this guy, different from what they told you, and that would move us higher up on the list if we were going to do that.
But now,
No, we didn't get.
they contacted Lindsay,
Yeah.
and, on this thing, saying the money's there.
So that would just be for the foundation repair, correct? Most of this?
money they've been released now, is what we call that, like an emergency management.
Yeah, they got emergency funds.
That's what it's for, because they haven't been given as much money as they had to do full restoration. So what they're doing is they're taking this money, this pot, and so then the 20 or 30 or so local, they're vying for this money. So then they rate, but like you said, Larry, we're right at the top when it comes to the full restoration.
And it makes sense, can't take politics out of all of it, but it's always there. But in reality, we got a courthouse that's got structural damage that we've had to move out of. So when you place them beside others, the courthouse that's functioning and going on, who needs the emergency funds? That just really makes sense. One other thing I failed to mention, when Nancy called the other day and said they'd been in contact with him, I had an ACOG meeting the next day, and I was sitting next to Senator Vandervue from San Antonio. And I asked her for a favor, in fact, she took the cover sheet with the pictures of the courthouse that I had and everything. And she said, I will make that call this afternoon. I said, well, now, Senator Zaffarini is our senator, and I haven't contacted her, and I don't want her to think that I, went somewhere. And she said, I'll be talking to her this evening on the phone, and I'll tell her. So, one day last week, I called John Kimball's office, and I talked to his first helper there, Ms. Brittany, and went through all this, and she said, well, we'll put a phone call into the Historical Society, on behalf of Wilson County. So, those things, as far as them getting their hooks into you, that's our first line of defense about that. If it gets unreasonable, we go back to our elected representatives and say, and that's the ones that fund them. It means something when they call them or say something, that's where they get their funding. And this last year, they put all kinds of things, they want everybody to be in Austin that day, and so they get that funding. And, but they have reevaluated themselves, because they didn't get the funding they had been used to getting. And so there's a new, type of what do we need to do to make sure we stay in good graces with the elected officials in Austin that we get that funding.
They have to be very considerate to it. They have to be, because they annoy so many people. And they realize that it's those people that are annoyed are the ones that they funded for. So it's, from the very beginning, I've been extremely skeptical about the whole thing, but we wanted to go ahead and said, okay. Like you said, that line's been drawn in the sand. I'm told I'm not doing any of that, and they're still coming back to us. I mean, it's just, we had that conversation I had with the head of the lady there, and she looked at me like I had two heads when I told her that I'm not taking this, I'm not doing this, I'm not going to do that. So Melissa's having this conversation right now because I'm not doing it. And so, even then, they...
Well, now, what would be the best, easiest way for you to do this? If we just funded it and did the courthouse, or you got this grant to work with?
Be nice if we had some extra money. I mean, when we're looking at the whole picture for everything, it would be much easier for the county if we had some money there.
Well, you know, probably the historical commission doesn't work this way, but to me, a selling point would be, look, we're at a point to where we have to do something. And we're only gonna do things within a certain guideline, but you can have input and we can do things to make you happy. Here's your chance if you wanna influence.
And that's exactly how I presented it. That's exactly how I presented it.
Because if you don't, we're gonna do whatever it is we need to do, and if you like it, great, and if you don't like it, well,
And I told them everything to what I'm doing to the interior. I said, I haven't got a budget to do a full, take all the trim out and make sure we have the knives made that match the ones from 1894. I'm not doing that. I'm gonna make it, we got about 8 colors there right now, between the lavenders and the browns and the blues. And some of the rooms have recently been painted, that are the right color change. I'm just gonna go in and make it all look as one.
Now, one thing that Lindsay shared with me this morning, was that if we go this route, it's gonna delay work till April, as far as the courthouse, till after their meeting. But we're still working with getting the contractors, the envelope, the bid, all that on there, so we're gonna be delayed on that to some degree. The election for all of it, November 5th, which is about a month away. So the time we get through with that, if the election goes through, we can start on these other facilities. And so I don't think that April's a deal killer. But I mean, that's for y'all to decide, but.
I asked that question, I posed a question, we really want to get on with the courthouse. I mean, is there a chance we could start now, and then, if they know the master plan is in process, and then, when April comes around, could we get that refunded? They said no. They said only unless it's absolute imminent that you've got people that are holding a wall up, and it's gonna collapse that next day, would even consider that.
Once you start in the courthouse, you won't get funded.
Right, so you have to wait until, that's part of the deal with it.
But they will know in April or by April whether it's
Yes,
be
and they said
funded or
literally that
not.
next day, they'll.
How would that affect the bid that we had for about waiting until April? I mean, would it change that bid any?
For this moment in time, it may not. I'm doing a project in San Antonio within a 3-month period. My foundation costs went up 30% in a 3-month period. From the time that we started drawing to the time we broke ground. But then I've got another project over there another one we're doing in San Antonio.
One thing that
It's been flat in 6 months.
We're somewhat fortunate here. I don't know what kind of concrete it's gonna take, it's just the footing around the edges of the courthouse that will be concrete and steel.
Correct, footing, and we'll look, I think we'll do the stem wall now probably in CMU, the concrete block.
But that concrete there, and then on the rest of the facilities, the only concrete and steel we'll be using will be for the side porch and the holding cells. And that's some of the major things that's gone up in the recent past is concrete and steel.
Concrete, fill, steel, they're the big.
and since we're able to use the slabs that we've
Right.
had before, because we've had those checked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been part of the cost, was the x-ray of those, make sure that they would sustain any kind of building on them and so forth, so on. So
I guess the issue, and it probably isn't an issue, would be the question as to whether we are likely to have any additional deterioration to the structure if we wait until April.
That's my biggest concern. You've been out there, what, 18 months now, probably?
2011. 2011.
Yeah.
Hopefully we haven't had any rain.
Nobody knows what's gonna happen next minute. That's the reason we're out of it. That put the test the stress of the cracks in it, and they were growing. We had people up in the district clerk's room, and we were down below, which, it may stand another 50 years. No one knows that.
From the observation I saw when I was over there about 3 weeks ago, the cracks have opened up a little bit more in some areas, they've closed a little bit in others. You know, you both know.
So there's a little bit of motion.
There's a little bit of motion.
Now, again, the floor in the district clerk's office is slanted, and that's because the wall is pulled away from it,
I think it's a combination of both. I think there's been some, the beams, you see the floor joist deflection, I think there's been a bit of failure in a couple of them. But that wall, as you say, actually goes from bottom to top, it goes out like a bow this way, but also bows out that way. So there has to be some type of failure in there. A combination of the brick moving and the brick not being strong, I think it's
How about termites?
I haven't actually seen, we put our hands in the walls and I haven't seen any termite damage so much. I don't think so. I think it's pretty darn dry there.
Over the years, of the places we've had termites and we've spot treated them was in the staircasing. We spot treated them there, and that's one thing I told him early on, that we need to be sure to look at that, make sure that we don't get in there and they'll say, well, we're gonna have to do the X amount for staircases, because, you know, that's because we have treated them over the years for termites.
So, the additional cost, other than what you've already had proposed cost for the repair of the courthouse, that you foresee the only additional cost would be the master plan, is that correct? Everything else should stay the same.
And you come with these very bad tidings, I'm hoping it with good news towards the end. That's,
Ms. Eva, do you have any comments or questions? Ms. Dana?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Vernon?
I'm just a little concerned about waiting that long.
About waiting till April?
I mean, how much more is it gonna cost us? That's,
Cost and damage.
I personally, from the year and, I know, 16, 18 months I've been dealing with it, looking at it, the building hasn't moved. The front door, for example, has a bit more of a crack in it now. And I'm just, it's a bit of a gamble, but I think the benefits that we can obtain for the buildings.
Where do we stand with Kaler Company now as far as a bid for the footing and the envelope of the building?
Well, they looked at the San Antonio firm, who are a good firm. They do a lot of concrete work.